So for today, first of all, Prajan talked to us about the timing, that actually we are coming closer to the end of our time together. And he wants to emphasize that actually the most important thing that we come here is to learn and to develop the quality of our mind, to accumulate the mental power of our practice. So this is actually the main reason that we're here. At the end of the course, there would be a test. At the end of the course, as usual. But Prajan wants to share that you don't need to put too much attention or too much emphasis just for preparing for the test, because the main goal of being here together is actually to learn and to practice and accumulate the mental energy together. And the test is not going to be that difficult. And Prajan shared that usually if he were to be the one to make up the test, there are a few topics that Prajan would like to share that these might be something that he would think about in order to create the exam or the test at the end. So questions might be something like, what is the objective of meditation or developing samadhi? And the answer is usually like to accumulate mental power or the energy of the mind. So this might be one of the questions that he might ask in the test. Or something like, what are the obstacles towards developing samadhi? And usually there are maybe agitation of the mind, worry of the mind, greediness in the mind, or maybe doubt or something like that. So those kind of answers might be something that you might want to look into as what are the obstacles of the mind. So this might be another question that might be on the test. Or sometimes if Luang Por Vriyang, when he was giving out the test, sometimes he would ask questions like, what are the benefits of developing concentration? What are the benefits of samadhi? And there are like 12 benefits that was Luang Por told us. So you might need to name 3 or 6. For example, it helps you to sleep well. It helps you to develop mindfulness. It helps you to be cautious in life, or it might bring up merit in the mind. So these are some examples of answers that you might be able to give. Or another kind of questions might be, when we talk about vipassana practice, who should be practicing vipassana? Because Luang Por sometimes talk about this in terms of vipassana practice is not actually very beneficial it's very beneficial, but it might not be for everyone to practice at that stage of life. For example, when Luang Por say that for people who live their life as a layperson, sometimes it's not a conducive condition to practice vipassana. Or vipassana is actually beneficial for someone who really want to extinguish all of their mental kileshas in the mind. So if you really want that kind of result, then doing vipassana would be especially necessary. But if you just want to live your life in your normal way, maybe vipassana is not something that is necessary for you at that stage. So this might be another kind of questions that would be asked. Or sometimes Luang Por would ask some very simple questions like, who is the one who has created this Kurusa Samadhi course? And of course, the answer is Luang Por himself. So this kind of questions might be on the test. So as you can see, it's not a very difficult question. And if you've been paying attention, usually it is something that you might already know. Prajan also talk about like one question that he saw that Luang Por used to talk about is จุดธรรมยุตภูมิ or in English we translate as the battlefield of Dhamma. That is the point of the battle in the mind when you what is it? So it's actually the point where the peacefulness of the mind is kind of fighting with the agitated mind. So that is what we call the battlefield of the Dhamma that appears in the mind. So you might be asked to explain what that point of the battle, the point of like fighting in the mind is. So Prajan also expanded on that point that actually the battlefield of Dhamma, that state in the mind, happens quite often. Every time when there's peacefulness in the mind and then suddenly there's some thoughts or emotions that comes to be a distraction in your mind and there becomes like a kind of fighting back and forth within the mind. That is what we usually call Jut Thamayutta Phum, or the battlefield of Dhamma in the mind. But then there are like a small battlefield and there's like a big or a grand battlefield. And the grand battlefield of the mind is usually pointing to the state where it's the point of the authoritative mind or Jut Phalang Amnat, where it's really having this battle with the kileshas in the mind, and then once it's overcome, it would create some kind of like a big shift or a big change in the mind, especially coming from the point of authoritative mind. So that is also another kind of battlefield of Dhamma, but it's like on a grander scale or a bigger scale. So these are some examples of the kind of questions that might be asked in the test. But Prajan just want to emphasize that the reason we're here is not for the test, but for the development of our mind. So that comes from our constant practice of meditation, constantly every day, like 3 times a day that we've been doing, and also listening to Luang Por's teachings and put that into our experience. So that is the main goal of why we are here. So as you can see, Luang Por would actually call what we've been doing together like a kind of Ugrit practice. So it means like an intensive practice where we do this practice since in the morning up until the whole day, up until at the end of the day. So this is what we've been accumulating and practicing, and that is the main goal of why we're here. And as you can see, it's not easy. So Prajan also talk about another point that people these days, there's many people who try to look for an easy way out in terms of trying to find an easy way to get to realization or liberation or doing deep samadhi in a very quick, easy method. But that is actually not possible. Prajan said if there were an easy way to do these practices and gain deep realizations, there would be no need for the Buddha to really have to go through all of those hardships before he gained his realization or enlightenment. The Buddha has spent so many kalpas trying to find this method, trying to find the path to liberation, and eventually teach us. And the path is not going to be totally easy for everyone. Everyone needs to go through the practice step by step and put in the effort to really gain the results of the practice. But these days there are people who always look out for the easy way out and want to find like easy teachings, like if you're able to be in the present moment continuously, that would lead to liberation. But if it were that easy, there would be no need for all of these practices that we have been learning and what the Buddha has taught so extensively about doing samadhi, developing meditation, about clarifying many aspects of the teachings and clarifying so many different obstacles towards the teachings. So you need to really put in the effort to really gain the experience of the practice. And Prajan also talk about like 4 qualities that would lead someone to become a wealthy person or a rich person, which can be applied to how we engage with the practice also. So the first quality is hardship, to endure hardship, to always be diligent in your practice. The second quality to become like a wealthy person is to guard or to maintain your practice or to guard or protect what you have already gained or accomplished. The third quality is to have a wise companion or a wise friend or a wise teacher or what we call Kalyana And the fourth quality to become a wealthy person is to have a moderate way of living, a moderate life. So this can also be seen and applied into how we engage with the practice also. And so all of this is to point to the point that the main goal that we have is to practice. There will be a test coming, but don't worry about it too much to the point where you have to worry about the test. And also Prajan gave some examples of what might be on the test as a hint, so you can look into those topics and be ready for the last stages of our time together here. ครับอาจารย์ครับ So the first question is, so Prajan start off by, actually there's many interesting questions today, and there are questions concerning the mental state or the experience of the practice, and also questions concerning the understanding of the teachings. So first of all, he would like to address the questions concerning the understanding of the teachings or the knowledge-based questions first. So the first question is, when we talk about right concentration or Samma Samadhi, and this is what Luang Por teaches as a main teaching, and it also appears in the Eight Noble Path as the last of the Noble Path, which is Samma Samadhi. So the question is this the same thing, which is supposed to be something that comes first, and actually also comes, because we're studying this first, right? So that Samma Samadhi is actually the starting point of the practice, and also the last of the points in the Eight Noble Path. So is this the correct understanding? And is it correct to say that when we develop Samma Samadhi in the Eight Noble Path is what is being taught in this course of Kurusa Samadhi or not? And also the question also asked about, is this concerning relating to the result that is mentioned in the text about the 3 rounds and the 12 conditions that needs to be accomplished in order to become a noble person, leading to the different stages of the liberation, starting from Sotapanna, Anakami Magga, Sotapan, Anakami, up to Arhatship. So Prajan's answer is that, so what we are learning here is actually directly addressing the state of the right concentration in the Magga. So that is actually correct. And when we talk about the 3 rounds and the 12 conditions that is needed to be accomplished in order to develop and become liberated, Luang Por talk about that in order to get the result of the path, there needs to be, this round has to be accomplished 4 times, and that would eventually lead to the 4 different levels of realization, starting from the stream mantra. ใช้ภาษา Okay, so each round of realization needs to have this 3. Each step of the realization needs to have these 3 rounds and 12 conditions accomplished. So Prajan talk about the 4 noble truths, starting from the dukkha. This needs to, they have different relationship towards each noble truth that you need to accomplish. So when we talk about dukkha, it needs to be known. When we talk about the cause of dukkha, that needs to be let go of. and we talk about nirodha, or the extinguishing of suffering, that needs to be realized. And when we talk about the path to this realization, it needs to be developed. So these are the 4 activities that needs to come, that needs to be related to the 4 Noble Truths. So in the text, in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, this is what the Buddha addressed. Starting from when we talk about the 3 rounds of activities that need to go with these 4 Noble Truths. The first thing, when we talk about, the Buddha talks about dukkha. So the first thing that needs to be known is called sajjayana. So you need to understand dukkha as dukkha. So you need to know that this is dukkha. That is the first thing that you need to do. The second thing is called gicchayana. So what you need to do with the dukkha, you need to know that this is dukkha. And the third thing that you need to do is called kattayana, so the accomplishment of this action. So the Buddha would say that this is dukkha, I know that this is dukkha, and this has been accomplished as knowing what is dukkha. So this is one round. The second round is concerning the cause of dukkha or samudaya. And the cause of dukkha needs to be let go of or needs to be relinquished. And once this cause of dukkha is relinquished or let go of, then the Buddha would say that now I have let go of the cause of dukkha. So this is completes the second round. The third round is about nirodha, or the cessation of dukkha. The Buddha would talk about this, that now I know this is the cessation of dukkha. The second is the cessation of dukkha has been realized and needs to be realized, and the Buddha have realized the cessation of dukkha. So this completes the third round. And the fourth round is about the marka, or the path leading to liberation. So the Buddha would say that I know that there is a path, and the path needs to be developed, and I have completely developed the path. So this completes the fourth round. So this is in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta that talks about the 3 rounds and the 12 conditions, which means that these 3 activities needs to happen concerning the 4 Noble Truths, and altogether this is the 12 conditions that will lead to liberation. So this is correct. And when we talk about the state of Samma Samadhi, or right concentration in the 8 Noble Path, you can see that it is actually at the end of the Noble Path. It becomes the last quality of the Noble Path. And some people might ask that, but don't we need Samma Titi, or right view, as the start? So Prajjan's explanation is, right view needs to come from the start, and that comes from listening, from learning, from having conversation about what needs to be developed, and about developing samatha and vipassana in the correct way. And eventually it would lead you along the path up to the point where you gain the right concentration, or samma samadhi. So that would eventually come back and complete the whole 8 Noble Path, and become, and that would lead you to the fruit of realizing the state of the noble Arya, or the noble beings. So what we learn here is learning about how to do samadhi, and eventually leading to being able to accomplish the state of right samadhi, and that will eventually come back, leading you to realize the right view, and eventually complete the path by completing the 3 rounds and the 12 conditions relating to the 4 Noble Truths that Prajjan explained earlier. ครับผม The second question is, today I've seen a clip in YouTube. There's a famous teacher who is also a teacher in Luang Pu Man's lineage. And this particular teacher, he's quite famous, and he was teaching a walking meditation. And his method is to, when you walk, to have on your right, you would use the mental recitation of put, and when you walk on your left foot, you put the mental recitation of toe. So you walk and having put toe with left and right steps of walking, and does not talk about putting your attention or the place your mind on the location point. So is this different or similar or the same with Luang Por Viriyang's style of teaching? Because I've heard that Luang Por Viriyang also talk about when you do walking meditation, you just walk back and forth and observe the mind. So is it different? Prajan Pairod's answer is actually he does not want to intrude on other teachers' teaching, but actually Prajan Pairod himself used to ask this question to Luang Por Viriyang himself when he was still with Luang Por. That so there are some other teachers who teach like this, that you put toe together with the sensations of walking left foot and right foot. So is that the way to practice? And Luang Por Viriyang's answer, Luang Por answered that his answer was that who in their right mind would put the Buddha on your toes, on your feet, on the toes of your feet. We need to put the Buddha up top on a higher throne where we pay respect. So it's kind of a half-joking answer from Luang Por Viriyang, but this is what Luang Por actually answered to Prajan. So Prajan's clarification is that if you want to develop mindfulness, actually, you can use put toe with the left and right foot, and actually that helps to develop mindfulness, and it's actually according to what is might be said in the Satipatthana Sutta. And many other teachers sometimes they teach like this also, but this is quite different from the way that Luang Por Viriyang teaches. When Luang Por Viriyang teaches, Luang Por would not want you to put your mind onto many different mental objects, but the way to really do Kammatthana, the word Kammatthana means to place your mind on a certain place or one particular object on one particular point. So when Luang Por teaches, he does not want you to mix your attention onto many other things. So place your attention on one object, and that is the mental recitation. And we don't put our attention on the walking and the mental recitation at the same time. We don't move our attention back and forth between different objects. But for many practitioners in Thailand, Prajan said, actually in Thailand we are very lucky because there are so many different teachers sharing or teaching many different methods that is according to their own style of practice, their own way of cultivating mental quality. But what we've done that is actually not correct in the Thai culture is that we ourselves, we mix different teachings from many teachers and we mix them up, and we then don't understand the correct method to practice in each method of the teachers. For example, in the past, when another great teacher, Luang Por Chodok, he would teach that whenever we move our foot in our walking meditation, we have to really place our attention on the walking method or on the sensations of walking, and really put our attention onto every minor detail of the process of walking. And also when we sit, we put our attention on the rising and falling of the belly of the body. So this is actually very much according to what is being written in the Satipatthana Sutra, but is very clearly focusing on the sensations of the posture of the body. So in this method, they observe what we say the body in the body. So really focusing on the sensations or the conditions of the body. And that is actually different from what Luang Por Vidyang is teaching, which is focusing on the mental recitation and really focusing on the quality of the mind. So these two practice, even though it's the same walking and there's also some kind of mental noting in the mind, it seems similar, but actually it has a very different direction of practice, so leading to different styles of the path. So we should not mix these two styles of practice together. In Luang Por Vidyang's teaching, the main idea is you place your attention on one particular object that you've chosen, one particular point, and that eventually leads to the accumulation of the mental energy or mental power of the mind. If you practice focusing on the attention on your attention on the body, that is actually helpful to create the awareness of the body and use that as the anchor for developing mindfulness. But it's actually different from this method that we are doing. So Prajan's answer is that eventually if you use Putto and walking together in terms of forcing the mind to, when you place your right foot, you say Put. When you place your left foot, you say To. That can lead to development of mindfulness of the body. But it's not the same method that Luang Por Vidyang's teaching. So please don't mix them up together. But it might lead to another development of the mind in another way. But it's not exactly what we are doing here. And also he heard that some people teach that when you breathe in, you say Put. When you breathe out, you say To. That is also possible to be a method to develop the mind, but it's not what Luang Por Vidyang is pointing to. Luang Por Vidyang want you to place your attention on one mental object at a time. ครับผม
ขอบคุณครับคำถามจากท่านพระอาจารย์กล้วยครับ
So the third question is from Luang Por Kloi, and he said that when he do his practice and sitting meditation for about 5 minutes, then he felt this very hot sensations like burning on his bottom when he's sitting, and then suddenly it becomes a sense of relief and coldness, and he felt like a very clear sense of coldness from the top to the bottom of his body. Then suddenly it becomes totally silent, peacefulness, and the sense of the physical body disappears, and then it becomes very stable like that for a long time until the bell rings. So, and this has happened 3 to 4 times already. So Luang Por Kloi asked, what is the state of this condition, and what should he do after this? Prajan's answer is that what you have explained is actually the quality of the first jhana, where you have been able to place your consistent attention on this, and then it becomes peacefulness and totally immersed in one pointed concentration to the point where all of the surrounding phenomena, all the sensations through your senses disappears. So this is the quality that happens when you get clearly into the first jhana. So this is a good sign. And so if you ask what you need to do, Prajan Pero said, don't need to do anything. You need to continue what you've been doing and get into this state more often and become familiar with this state and maintain that state for a longer period of time. So the advice is to keep doing the same thing and get used to getting into this state. And Prajan shared that if you've been able to do this for 3 or 4 times, actually that is actually a very good sign. It means you are familiar with this state already. You kind of get the hang of it. You kind of know how to get into that state already. So this is a good sign of development of the practice. And Prajan shared that sometimes people get into this state and they felt like, oh, I've already reached very deep samadhi. But then they get this like discouraged when they know that it's only the first jhana, and they would think that actually they have gone further along the path. Prajan Pairod want to emphasize that actually for developing samadhi, the most important point is actually getting into the first jhana. And the first jhana is actually the foundation of every jhanas. So if you develop your concentration to the second, the third, to the fourth jhana, actually all the deeper jhanas come from this starting point. And every time that you get into deeper jhanas, you have to go through the first jhana. So this is the most important point, the most important access into the deeper jhanas. And as you have heard, when Luang Por Viriyang was teaching in the first chapter, he would say that mental recitation is necessary, is always necessary. And leading to the first jhana, always you need to do this mental recitation, and to get into the first jhana, this is actually the one of the crucial element. And Prajan shared that if gave a simile that it's like a small seed of a big tree. A big tree starts from a very small seed, and that starting point, the small seed, when it starts to sprout or start to grow, it doesn't grow into a big tree right away, but it starts to grow into like a small branch would start to come out from that seed. And at that moment is actually a very important and crucial point of the tree. When it starts to grow this small branch from the small seed, that is actually very important and actually very dangerous point. If the tree starts to grow, it's very easy for the tree to die at that moment. So you need to give it water, you need to give it some fertilizer, you need to take care of the tree when it's very small, because just a small push, you can break the tree and it can die right there. But if you help to support that small tree up to the point where it's like 30 centimeters tall, then you don't need to put that much attention on taking care of that tree, but you also have to take care of it a little bit. But it starts to be firmly growing on itself. But once the tree grows much bigger into a tall, bigger tree, then eventually you don't need to do anything to support the tree. The tree would be able to support itself, and then it would naturally give out fruit, give out the results. So this simile of the seed slowly growing into a tree is very similar to how we develop samadhi and growing in the jhanas. The initial point of the seed or the first jhana, when it starts to grow, that is the most important point. And that is when you need to really pay attention and take care of it. Take care of all the conditions that lead to the growing of the first jhana very carefully. So what Prajan would advise is to become familiar with how you get into the first jhana. Try to go into the first jhana as often as possible. Remember how you get there, and try to maintain that state of the first jhana or the state that you've experienced for as long as possible, and stay there and be familiar with it as much as possible. And then eventually the second jhana up to the fourth jhana would would start and grow from that state, from that first jhana. It would automatically go into a deeper state of concentration from that first jhana. So like Luang Por would say that familiarize with it, and you go into it as often as possible up to the point where the mind is full, where the mind is very familiar with that state. So what you ask, what you need to do next, you don't need to do anything. What you're doing is good enough. Do it, maintain it, and then become familiar with it as much as possible. ครับผม So the next questions come from Phante Nirej Viriya Silo from India. So has two questions. The first question is, my primary objective to come here is learning meditation and purify my mind, and it's going on, but sometimes lots of thoughts comes during meditation, both in walking and sitting. So how to deal with it? By saying Bhutto, when Bhutto does not work sometimes, can you please explain? And the second question is, how about the last days of Luang Por very young? What was his last message for us to the world and to the world? Thank you. So the first question concerning doing meditation and practice, and there's a lot of thoughts. Prajan Pairo's answer is that usually when we do meditation, we usually think that once we do meditation, thoughts should disappear, and we should have a clear, clean state of mind. But it's usually not like that. The more that we practice, the more there seems to be thoughts coming into our mental state. Even though we use Bhutto as our mental recitation, there are still many thoughts appearing. Prajan's answer is actually the thoughts remain the same as it used to be, but now you have accumulated enough concentration, enough awareness to actually see the thoughts that is coming and going. You have always had these thoughts in your mind since before you start doing meditation, but now you have developed the ability to notice it, ability to observe that you are thinking. So this is why you feel there are many thoughts happening. Actually, you are thinking the same as you have always been thinking about. So, and you've asked that, is this the way to purify the mind? So yes, the way that you've been practicing and seeing the thoughts is a way to help purify the mind. Because if you don't see the process of thoughts in your mind, how can you purify it? How can you let it go? How can you learn about it? So this is a necessary step to actually purify the mind. But what Ajahn would like to advise is that whenever you do your practice and you start to see a lot of thoughts coming, one thing that you should consider doing is not to focus on the thoughts, but actually to look back at who is observing these thoughts, who is the knower of this phenomena of thoughts that is appearing. And actually, the one who is knowing everything is actually the consciousness, or the knower, or the one that we're trying to ask the question, who is the knower, who is the consciousness when you start doing your meditation. This is actually what you can look back to and focus on, to see who is actually observing these thoughts. So you would start to know that we are not the thoughts, and the thoughts are not us. The important thing is to see who is doing the process of thinking, who is observing this phenomena of thoughts that is arising in the mind. So this is the way to encounter or the remedy to this situation that you are talking about. So in the meditation practice that we're doing, we are not concerning about what thoughts arise, but what we are concerned is who is doing the thinking, where are the thoughts coming from, what is causing these thoughts to arise. But we don't worry too much about what the thought is about. Prajan also said that it's like going to see a show or a play. We're not focusing on what is being played on the stage, but what we want to focus on is who is the director, who is directing all of this play that is happening on the stage. We are not focusing on what is happening, we are focusing on who is guiding what is happening, who is the mastermind behind all of this. So this is what Ajahn wants you to focus on. The second part of the question is what happens during the last moments of Luang Por very young, and what is his legacy? What did he left for all of us? So During the last stages of หลวงพ่อ Very Young's life, พระอาจารย์ไพโรจน์ said he still maintained full awareness of himself, full sati. He had like 100% of his consciousness of awareness still intact, even in the last stages of his life. พระอาจารย์ shared the last moments that even during the last days where หลวงพ่อ Very Young was at Krungthep Hospital, หลวงพ่อ Very Young was sitting on a sofa, and the monks who were the attendants of หลวงพ่อ Very Young were sitting below. This was the time where หลวงพ่อwould say to the monks that actually he can live for 100 years, and during all his life up to this almost 100 years old, he have never broken his vows. His sila was always intact throughout his life. And หลวงพ่อ also said that up until this point, his mind was never indulged in the three worlds. So the Abhaya Bhumi, Rupa Bhumi, and Arupa Bhumi. So หลวงพ่อ would say that his mind is not entangled within any of the three worlds, and that is kind of his hint or his message about his state of mind, his condition. หลวงพ่อ did not use the word that he is beyond the three worlds, but the word that หลวงพ่อ used to explain his state, his condition, is that he is not bounded by any of the three worlds. So this is what หลวงพ่อ said in his last stages of his life, where he would eventually maintain his awareness up to the last stages where he would let go of his physical body on the 22nd of December. So if you listen to หลวงพ่อ Very Young's teachings and the recordings, you would hear many times that some monks would ask หลวงพ่อ Very Young about his state of realization, like what is the state of your realization, how deep of a realization has หลวงพ่อ accomplished. And หลวงพ่อ Very Young would not answer this kind of questions, and หลวงพ่อ Very Young would kind of give an answer to the monks who would ask these kind of questions. Luang Por would say that if you have enough time to worry about other people's business, why don't you go to do your own practice and do some walking meditation? So that is usually Luang Por's reply. Luang Por usually does not address this question, but on the last day, that is when Luang Por Very Young addressed this kind of question about his state of realization by saying that his mind is not bounded by any of the three worlds. And if you ask what is the legacy or the message that Luang Por left for us once he passed away, so Vicha Samadhi, or the method of practice, or how to learn the learning, or how to learn to practice developing samadhi, this whole process of practice is what Luang Por has left for us as a legacy of his life. If you look at throughout Luang Por's life, everything that he's been doing, or what Luang Por have done, is never for his own sake or for his own reputation or accomplishment. Everything that Luang Por Very Young did throughout his life are all for the benefit of others, are all for the benefit of the world. And this has always been his intention, and this is what he has left for all of us since he had made this vow to the white robe layperson who had saved Luang Por Very Young's life, where he made the vow that he would dedicate his life for the benefit of others, for the benefit of the world, for the peacefulness of the world. So all of his life, what he left for us is the method to develop samadhi and and the method of meditation. And all of this is for the benefit of others and for the world. So that is Luang Por Very Young's legacy that he left for us.
ครับผมจริงๆเหลืออยู่2คำถามครับของท่านปรเมศกับหลวงพ่อจรครับแต่ว่ามีคำถามหนึ่งเร่งด่วนผมขอโอกาสตอบตรงนี้นะครับจากหลวงพ่อจรสิทธิวราคมจูเนียร์ครับ กับพระอาจารย์ด้วยความเคารพขณะที่ในขณะภาวนาผมมีประสบการณ์ดังต่อไปนี้ครับ 1. ผมรับรู้ถึงทุกสิ่งทุกอย่างรอบๆตัวอย่างรวดเร็วประมาณ5 นาที
So there's actually two more questions, but there's one question where it is more necessary. So Prajan would like to ask to answer this question from Lungpa John. So the question is, with my respect, can I ask, when I practice sitting meditation, I experience first 4 situations. First, I am aware of everything around me and time passes quickly, like 5 minutes. Second, I am not aware and time passes also quickly. Third, I am aware but time seems like 1 hour, longer than 30 minutes. And fourth, I am not aware and time passes very quickly. But before the bell, I become aware of everything again. And can you please explain? And when walking meditation, also sometimes time passes very quickly also. Can you please help explain? Prajan's answer is that this is actually a kind of feeling. So you can see that when we are not aware of ourselves, when we doing meditation, when we're not aware, sometimes time seems to pass very quickly. And this can come from sometimes from 2 things. First one is sometimes you get into a state of, technically we call it bhavanga, but usually we call it sleepiness. Sometimes we fall asleep and time seems to pass away very quickly. Or the second thing is that we are sometimes very focused on something to the point where we kind of lose track of time. So these can be 2 possibilities of what happens. Or sometimes if you feel like you can feel your whole body and really be aware of everything around you, and you focus on the mental recitation. Sometimes it can also feel like the time is also very long. And this depends on your relationship with your own expectation as well. Sometimes it's a feeling that happens relating to your expectations. So sometimes it might seems like very short, sometimes it might seem long, but usually it comes from either intensely focus on something to the point where time you lose track of time, or you lose consciousness and you go into a sleepy state or bhavanga state, and that can seem like time passed very quickly without being aware of it. But Prajan said, but for the second part, there's one thing that Ajahn John explained, and it's actually a very good thing, is that when you say that sometimes when you do your walking meditation or sitting meditation, you are aware of everything around you, and it seems like time passed very quickly as well. So Prajan said this is something that you should, it's like this is something you should celebrate in your practice, and this is a very good condition in the practice, and this is what you need to maintain in your practice. And it's the quality when the mind is intensely focused on either the walking or the sitting, be aware of what you're doing, and also intensely focus on the mental recitation. And when you are focused like this and also aware, time seems to be, you sometimes lose track of time, and it becomes like a very short period of time also. So this is a state where you should maintain the level of awareness, and also maintain connection to the mental recitation. So this is something that you should do and continue practice like this. Develop your awareness and also the mental recitation. Yes.